Right, so there's been a few requests for a change of intro. Obviously I changed it just recently when I came back there, and quite a few folk have been asking me where the old intro is, so here it is. Let's get on with the video. My Scottish Cup quarter-final draw reactions. Right, so first up we've got Aberdeen versus Kilmarnock or Rangers. Now obviously it's a very interesting tie. They've played in a cup semi-final, I think it was, at Hampden only recently this season, and that was a kind of nervy tie as well. Aberdeen came out on top on that occasion, and Rangers, as I said, won 4-2 just recently in the league as well. So who knows if Alfredo Morelos will manage to get himself sent off again against Aberdeen. But that obviously only comes if Rangers beat Kilmarnock, and that's a big tie in itself. It's going to be back at Ibrox after a 0-0 draw in the kind of first leg of that, even though it was only going to be a one-legged tie if one team won. But since it was a draw, it's going to a replay, and Kilmarnock will play Rangers but at Ibrox, and then whoever wins that tie will go through to play Aberdeen. And I'm not just going to assume that it will be Rangers. Of course it is kind of maybe the favourites of that tie, especially when they're at Ibrox, but Kilmarnock are no pushovers this season, and they haven't been under Steve Clarke really at all. So I'm not going to completely shut them out of this fixture. If Kilmarnock go through and play Aberdeen, it'll be just as interesting a fixture. It'll be at Pittodrie, as I said, and it'll be quite an interesting one regardless of who wins out of Kilmarnock and Rangers, because at the end of the day they really are three of the top four sides in Scotland at the moment. So it'll be an interesting one, and whoever wins in Kilmarnock versus Rangers, I'm sure that the next tie coming up, whether it's Kilmarnock or Rangers playing Aberdeen, it'll be one to look out for. And knowing Premier Sports or Sky Sports, they'll end up taking that one just simply into the fact that Rangers are involved, but then it adds that wee extra spice that another team's involved that's top of the table in Scotland. So they're going to be dining out on that one, whether it's Premier Sports on Sky Sports that gets the rights to that fixture. The next fixture is an all championship tie, and if I'm being honest, this was probably one of the best outcomes that the draw could have given us. I really think that championship sides don't get a fair crack of the whip when it comes to draws, or even lower league sides in general. They always tend to end up getting Celtic or Rangers away or something like that, but the fact that Dundee United have got a home draw against either Ross County or Inverness after the Highland Derby last night, where Inverness were 2-1 up and Ross County came back at the death to grab a draw and take it to a replay going back to the Tulloch Caledonian Stadium. But it'll be an interesting one, as I said, an all championship tie, and it means that a championship side will be going to Hampden at some point this season, which that in itself is fantastic. For example, Dundee United win this one, they'll get a chance to go back to Hampden, and we all know what Dundee United's support can be like when they've got an occasion to go out to, especially since they've been involved in cup finals before and they've brought masses of fans. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens in this upcoming fixture in the quarter final, because Dundee United are at home, the onus is on them to try and get back to Hampden for the first time in a good while, and Robbie Neilson has obviously brought in his own players, and he'll be hoping to really kick on in the second half of the season. On the flip side of that though, whoever gets through between Ross County and Inverness, Ross County could easily be looking at going for a double this season, and whilst the Scottish Cup might not be the most realistic trophy left for them to actually win one of the double, obviously they're still involved in the Ironbrew Cup, so that looks like maybe the most likely outcome for them, but they want to progress in this competition as far as they can possibly go, and they're near enough the current league leaders in the championship. And Inverness, obviously, the onus will be on them to win this replay against Ross County since they're at home, and then they've obviously won the Scottish Cup in the last few years as well when they beat Falkirk. So it'll be an interesting one regardless of whoever goes on to eventually win this quarter final draw. But I'm just really pleased that it's an all championship tie, and that the championship sides didn't really get frozen out by getting the bigger teams away from home or anything like that, because that always makes it difficult. And here's one that's kind of very similar to me, Partick Thistle versus Hearts. Obviously that means that Partick Thistle got a home tie, and once again it's a very pleasing draw for me. Whilst Hearts will probably still go into it, and rightfully so, being the favourites, Partick Thistle getting a home tie at this stage in the competition I think is very, one, surprising a bit to me, but two, it is very pleasing and amusing to me because, as I said, a lot of these kind of lower league sides or championship sides tend to get the bigger sides away from home when it comes to this stage in the competition. So I really do think that Partick Thistle getting a home tie is fantastic for the draw itself. It gives them a wee bit of an advantage going into this one, and it'll be a highlight of their season really, because unless they avoid relegation, which is obviously the big thing for them, they need to avoid relegation into League One. But if they can avoid relegation and also take part in a quarter-final with the chance of getting to Hampden in the semi-final, especially with a home tie against Hearts now, it's massive for them, and it could really change the fortunes of someone like Gary Caldwell, who has been much maligned since he's joined Partick Thistle as their manager, and something like this could really propel his Partick Thistle managerial career from down here at the very start to way up here come the end of the season. So it's the type of fixture that is just very amusing on the face of it, but then the consequences for a manager like Gary Caldwell, if he can manage to pull off a win in this sort of fixture, is massive. But as I said, Hearts will probably go into it being the favourites, and I mean, rightfully so, they are the Premiership side and they're up near the top end of the table, so we'll see how that one goes. But there's a funny wee feeling about maybe Partick Thistle going into this one. I feel like maybe this could be the shining light in their season. And then finally, Celtic, they got an away tie as well, and I think this draw has kind of met the demands of probably all fans really, because I mean, maybe Celtic or Rangers didn't want away ties, but they do end up always tending to get home ties in the cup draws and stuff like that. So Hibernian versus Celtic, and we all know the troubles that Hibs have caused Celtic at Easter Road, so we'll see how that one pans out as well. It's a really interesting tie on the face of it, like the Partick v Hearts one, and all the other ties that I've really mentioned as well. They've all got that bit of bite to them, and if this was at Celtic Park or Parkhead, whatever you want to call it, I would be giving the advantage to Celtic no matter what, because I think Celtic are just so strong when it comes to playing at Parkhead. But Celtic's away record this season has been very poor. I can't exactly remember the amount of points. I think it's something near about the mark of 15 out of 33 points, or I think maybe with their win at St Johnstone it's maybe 18 out of 36 points taken so far in this season. And of course this is a cup competition, so it's massively different in that aspect, in terms of there'll be no points up for grabs, it's just winning you're through. But Hibs v Celtic has always been a kind of tasty fixture in the last couple of years, and if Hibs can get their act together within the next month in terms of their form and stuff like that, there is no reason why they can't give Celtic a big game coming into this one. And again, a bit like Partick Thistle, it could end up being a real kind of light in Hibs' season, because their season has been poor so far and it doesn't look like they're going to get in the top 6. So it's a difficult one, because Celtic will go into it being favourites I imagine, but do Hibs still have that edge since it's still at Easter Road? My overall opinion on all the fixtures, as I said, it's just very amusing to see things like Rangers getting an away draw and it being at Pittodrie. It's a big game and it means a lot to both sets of fans. Dundee United v Ross County and Inverness, an all-championship tie, that's fantastic. I think that's draw of the round for me, just because of how unlikely it seemed to me and probably quite a lot of other fans that these teams would get that draw. Partick v Hearts, I really like that draw because I think it gives Partick maybe a chance to finally get something out of this season, because it has been so poor for them so far. But Hearts will go into it favourites. And Hibs v Celtic, I've mentioned it already, it being at Easter Road, it adds that bit of edge to it. Just like Hearts going to Partick, Celtic will go into this one being favourites. But as I said, the cup competition, you just never know. So there's my reaction to the Scottish Cup quarter-final draws. What do you think of the draw itself? What tie do you think was the best? And that's it for this video. So if you did enjoy, please give it a like, comment down below, as I said, what tie you think was the best out of all of them, and subscribe for more of this type of content. And until the next video, which will be Punt It Long tomorrow, I'll see you then. Cheers guys.